Welcome to Built with Purpose. I am Chris Fay, and this is the show where vision meets execution and leadership leaves a legacy. From design studios to innovation hubs and product lines to skylines, we meet the people building more than great companies. They're creating culture, driving impact, and shaping what's next. These are the stories and strategies behind how the world gets built with purpose.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Built with Purpose. I am your host, Chris Fay. I am fired up. And just a quick note, Brad, my team has told me that I say fired up way too much.
It's right there on your,
It's on my, oh, look at this. So I was at a conference a few weeks ago, and one of our marketing girls was like, hey, can I get you something that says fired up on it? I said, rock and roll. So we were going to sit down and talk shop this morning and get some work done. And I was like, instead of that, why don't we just record a podcast together? And so, Brad, thanks for being on, brother.
Oh, my pleasure.
So Brad didn't hit me before this set of show. It actually is a piece of surgery. So everything went well, but you get to stare at my Band-Aid. So, but yeah, Brad, it's like we've kind of talked about, the purpose of a podcast and Built with Purpose. It's really around, leadership and building great companies and really with purposeful intent, driving change in the industry. And Brad has had this amazing experience throughout his career and has been a friend and a coach to me. And so the mentor becomes the mentee, maybe this morning.
When I tell my story of kind of where I got started, it always starts with the idea that I was this kid in high school that I remember vividly being up in the canyon with a bunch of buddies, junior year of high school, and that discussion about what are we all going to do when we grow up, kind of that really first time where you're having that discussion. And in my mind, and I know this probably wasn't the case, but in my mind, as we're going around that little bonfire that night, everybody had a clear vision of what they were going to do when they grew up, except for me. And the crazy thing is, I don't know that I'd given any thought to it before that night. I was just having fun. I knew I wanted to go to college. I didn't know where I wanted to go to college, but I had no idea what I wanted to study. And in this moment, and I was a pretty relaxed kid and, had a lot of fun, but in this moment of oh my gosh, am I supposed to know all of it? Am I supposed to have all this figured out? And so I spent the next probably, you could argue I spent the next maybe 30 years trying to figure out how to figure out everybody when I grew up. And I tell people I figured it out probably when I was 48 years old. But the good news is in that journey, I learned a couple of things, and I learned it's totally okay not to know exactly what you want to do. Now, it's also great if you do. I had two buddies that they knew exactly what they wanted to do, and they executed on it, and it was awesome to watch it from kind of a friend perspective, to see them passionately
say I want to do this. I'm going down this path. I pursued. They hit it.
Yes. And so one thing is I tell the story, and I've had the opportunity to kind of be at colleges and universities to tell this story, because one of the things that I wish, and again, it could have happened and I could have not been listening in fairness, but I wish we would have talked about this more at the university level. And at that point, I hadn't even put my major yet, because again, I'm hey, it was that time around that bonfire. I'm all right, I'm a junior. I'll surely figure it out, but then I'm a senior.
I got time.
And then I guess, I'm a senior. It's okay, well, I'll enroll in college, and then certainly I'll figure it out. And so I met with my guidance counselor, and at that point, and I don't know how it is anymore with universities today, but that you could not have a major your first couple of years. It didn't matter. But by the time you were a junior, if you didn't declare a major, they started charging you more per credit hour.
I don't know.
Yeah. I think almost as an incentive to say, look, you
figure it out.
Yeah. Get it figured out. So luckily, their amazing guidance counselor, I don't remember her name. I wish I did, because I've told the story enough that she deserves credit. And she was really the first person to say, Brad, it's totally okay that you don't know what you want to do, but let's do this. Let's start with, what don't you want to do? And let's start getting the list down. I wasn't going to be a doctor or a lawyer. I wasn't going to, there's an engineer. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be, a writer or, a teacher, but I probably could do something around business. So then she was fantastic to say, okay, business, let's, is marketing interesting? And for some reason, when she kind of threw out finance, and we, kind of talked about, all right, understanding how money works in a business setting, I thought, well, it's not that I'm passionate about that, but that seems like a great background to understand.
Yeah.
And so if there's one really good decision that I made in my life, it was all right, let me get a, kind of a degree in finance. And so from there,
and were you just think about Wired, were you more of a math and science guy or?
And this is the interesting thing. And again, I think I was,
you love history. Yeah, I can do it.
I wish I could tell you I loved anything. I loved life. This is the crazy thing. To hear me speak, it almost sounds like, oh, I was this, lost soul who had no, and I grew up in an amazing family, I had great parents, brothers and sisters, great friends, everything, like all the advantages you could want. I got good grades in school, but again, I never found anything that was like, oh, that thing's calling my name.
Yeah.
And until later, much later, in my career, and we'll kind of get to that. But again, the understanding, like, if I understand how money works, that's probably going to be to my advantage. It doesn't matter what I do. And that was exactly kind of what the guidance counselor, I remember. I'm like, okay, fine, let's do finance. And I can tell she was probably relieved. I got to get this kid out of my office. I got something.
Like, I got 6 guys waiting in the hallway, and Brad keeps talking about all these things. He wants to be an artist, and I just,
I mean, probably those other 6 people probably have a clue what they're doing.
yeah, their life. Billy and Jan know what they want to do, Brad. Like,
let's get moving. But I kid you not. So I'm like, all right, finance, let's do finance. Okay, great. So she's working on the paperwork and getting all that. And she happens to mention, all right, well, 2 of the big jobs in finance are, you can go on to become a CPA or a banker. And Chris, I kid you not, I'm like, those sound like the worst jobs in the world to me. I have a banker, I have a CPA, and I love them.
Yeah.
Like what they do is so needed. So it's not me.
It's just not you.
Exactly.
Oh, she's like, great, finance. You're going to be a banker. You're like,
oh, exactly. It's suddenly I think I maybe found something that's going to work. Like, that's not going to work at all.
yeah.
There is something about just showing up, being intentional, looking for opportunities that you might not even think would show up. And I have a great example of that. So, and I remember complaining to my girlfriend at the time about, hey, this job is terrible. And she's so sweet because she's just listening to me complaining, and finally says, hey, you could do something about that. Like, there's other jobs you could get while you're working your way through school. So I end up, through her kind of guidance and direction, I find this really cool job. It's working for a kind of a nonprofit company, and their whole goal is to help kids who've had kind of rough upbringings and maybe coming from tougher circumstances, and they provide all kinds of services, including like a kind of a cool preschool opportunity, and then help for their families. It's a great program. And so I happen to have had a little experience working with kids because my sister had owned a daycare. And I worked at that daycare in the summers during my high school, so I was teaching the kids how to play soccer and baseball, and, being that extra adult, loosely, to take them to the zoo or to the museum. Right. So I go and apply for this job. And, again, it's interesting because, in some ways I'm kind of assisting this amazing lady who is like a preschool teacher as a professional, and she's amazing. Like, she's done it for years and years and years,
Which takes a super special.
all the things, like, she's dealing with tougher kids. She's amazing, biggest heart ever. And when I find out that's really what the job is, because in the newspaper, which, well, this takes me back, it makes me feel really old now, but that's where we're learning about this. Is it's, hey, if you have experience being around kids and you enjoy that, and then, so I'm not even sure exactly what I'm applying for until I get there. She kind of tells me what it is. And I said, hey, to be honest with you, her name is Shirley Barchi, just an absolute amazing woman. Turns out to be a mentor for me. And I'm like, oh, Shirley, I love what you're doing. This sounds amazing, but I'm just trying to get through a year of school. Like, I need a job to get me through, kind of my senior year of school. And she's like, look, don't worry about it. I'll take care of all that stuff. If you'll come teach the kids how to, play sports and just kind of be an influence positive in their life, I'd love to have you. So she brings me on. I do that for a year. And in that year, it's amazing. It's fun. It's so much better than going and slinging burster for,
Exactly. The late night crowd at JB.
Yeah.
That's, much.
Exactly. And I'm wrapping up my, my junior year. So my first year of doing that. And I told Shirley, hey, this has been amazing. I love it. Now I need to pivot. I need to go find something, a job that gives me some experience that would help me when I get my degree in finance. And, she's like, oh, you've been amazing. And I've loved having you. And I wish I could keep you for another year. So unbeknownst to me, she went to the CEO of this nonprofit and kind of shared, hey, here's what's going on in Brad's life. And I get a call from the CEO. Her name's Glenna Markey. And she says, look, I understand what your situation is, and I have a proposal for you. If you'll stay one more year, so even my senior year of college, and do what you've been doing with Shirley. We're writing a grant right now, and our CFO needs an assistant. And in that grant, we'll write for that role. And if we get the funding, the job's yours. And then you got like your exact thing. You're going to be the assistant to our CFO. And again, this is like an opportunity. I'd even, wasn't even on my radar.
CFO.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so sure enough, I stayed, one more year. In that year, that's all of this stuff was happening. And not because I had a great plan, right? Because I had everything figured out, and so just put yourself in good situations, just surround yourself with great people.
Yeah.
And it's amazing what ends up happening.
There's a friend of mine who's a coach of mine. He always says success comes to those that are too busy to look for it. And so like, it's not like you're sitting there looking for that opportunity, but because you were there doing a good job and kind of in the moment, and oftentimes they don't pour themselves into the job at hand, when really what they need to be doing is pouring themselves into the job at hand to do the very best job they can. Like they're here, they're committed. If you're constantly questioning or constantly looking for that next opportunity, you're not doing a good service to the current owner. You would have had that experience. I mean, they would have seen the value in having you there.
It's such a great point. And it goes back to a word you said when you were kicking this thing off. It is that just being intentional in what you're doing, and maybe being less concerned about intentionally planning for the next thing. And there's something to be said. Having a good plan is great. So my point isn't, but I think we get so caught up, at least I did. I got so caught up into thinking about how is this all going to work out? And again, if you think about that little job I had Shirley that first year, I'm working with these pudesec little preschool kids, but there's nothing about that was career growth for me, or was it, it wasn't, but at least I was, I was aware enough to say, look, I can throw and the other part was I was so grateful not to be flipping burgers, covered in grease.
To see what you came from.
Yes. It's like, okay, I can be super grateful that I just have this thing. So there's a whole other thing in gratitude that I'm a big fan of as well. But so that led to my kind of, now I'm the assistant to this, CFO, and then she's amazing, unbelievable. Her name's Valerie Lofthouse, and she's been CFO, for, I don't know, probably 25, 30 years in many different, for-profit, nonprofit. So I'm learning more, like I learned more from her like in 2 months than I do 4-year degree.
Right, I'm sure.
Like, hey, how'd you handle this? And she takes me under her wing, becomes an amazing mentor for me. And then I still remember the day she comes into the office and she's like, hey, you know what? I'm going to retire. And, she was in her probably late 60s, but just vibrant as all get out. In my mind, she could have worked another, 30 years. So, I'm having this thought in my mind, like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And she's been and before I can finish, she's like, all right, here's the good news. At this nonprofit, the board of directors hires the CEO and the CFO. That's their mandate. Those two hires come from the board. And I've got the board to agree to include you in the interviewing pool for the CFO. And she says, of course you could do it, and it was like maybe the first time, again, what I had was this advocate, this person who behind the scenes, without me knowing, like Shirley did with Glenn, had the CTO, Valerie was doing with the board of directors, far more than I realized until way later. Not only was she telling them, look, interview Brad, give him a shot. And so with her kind of support, suddenly I'm, and I remember, you want to talk about the most nervous I've been, maybe outside of proposing to my wife or birth of our children, or like I'm sitting outside that boardroom, like going into this interview, and I'm watching I think they interviewed like 5 other candidates, and these are all in my mind. These are all like grown people. I'm 25 or so at the time, but I still
40, 50-year-old.
Exactly.
Sex, walking the door and all this experience. And
and I'm just this, in my mind, I'm still 16-year-old sitting around the bonfire, and I don't know what I ought to do. Right. It said, I'm going to go into this board of directors. And I get into the interview, and the first couple of questions come across, and my heart's beating a million miles an hour. And suddenly I realize, hey, I know how to answer these questions, because they're talking about the business. They're saying, hey, how do you think about the budget process and everything about the grant, right? The stuff that Valerie had taken me through, and just been amazing. So I'm like, oh yeah, well, here's how we kind of thought about that. This is what we're doing. And all of a sudden I realized, oh my gosh, I've got something I can bring to this.
Oh, that's cool.
And I ended up getting,
So it's like a shift in confidence level. And you,
in the moment. Yeah, it went from, oh, come on, there's no way. What am I doing here? To, wait a minute, I think I really could do this. And I wish there was like, video. I'd love to see my whole body. And like, well, why wasn't I thinking of that?
Right.
Like I could have been thinking that, obviously, right? I ended up getting the job, and I wasn't. Now, the good news was, I think there's a part of it that I do like that shows in any successful, if you spend time with successful people and kind of talk, you're going to find that they're successful because they're surrounded by great people.
Watch you and shape you and getting you advice. And, what if you didn't have your teachers teaching you things and guiding and coaching you? And so, and it kind of, okay, I got it. They're following me and yeah, we wouldn't be very far. I get it. I'm like, well, if you have coaches and teachers and people helping you with things like academics and athletics, why do you not have something like that? Or why are you not open for that as it relates to your life?
Yes.
And that could come through just peers, mentors, the people that you spend your time with, a professional coach that you can get out and just generally work with. But I think so many people like underestimate the value of having this like tribe around you and these great people that can influence. And I don't know if it's just ego or if it's people that they just haven't experienced it before. I mean, you and I were became friends like early in my career here, probably 14 years ago. And like you had created this environment where I felt very safe to ask questions. But like I remember being intimidated being around successful people. And I'm like, I don't want to act stupid or appear stupid by asking them questions. And like my whole mindset has shifted now. And I'm like, I'm the dumbest dude on the block.
Yep.
Like, Brad, what can you do to help me? How did you do that? Like, I messed this up. What do you think? But I don't know. I think if more people were more open-minded earlier on for the value of having great people around them and asking vulnerable questions, just being open for coaching in their career and their lives. I mean, the trajectory is crazy. It's unbelievable. You know what I mean? Right.
And it is interesting that you're right, that I think there's a component that's ego driven. There's a component that is just not aware. Like I didn't think about
A lack of awareness.
exactly. Right. After I left that nonprofit organization, I went to this amazing company that, much like TPO, did very similar things. I spent 22 years there, had an unbelievable experience, and then decided that's when I kind of figured out, hey, I think I really know what I want to do with my life. And I had one of those worked. His name was Phil Mydlack, and Phil, and he worked, for probably close to 15, 16 years with our organization, with me personally. And so I got to see what he was doing. I'm like, oh, I like that. There's something there and so I chose to do that. And it was an outcome of a lot of things coming together at the right time. One of the things was just my ability to spend more time, with my family, with my wife, with my daughters. And I have a daughter going into her senior year of high school, and it's 2:30 in the afternoon, summer day. I'm out on the back porch. I'm reading. I'd love to read books about human behavior and why we do stuff, why we mess up, why we succeed. I love that stuff. All of a sudden, this oh my gosh, and she knows me well, and she knows that if I don't limit Dad to one, he's going to give me advice for the next 3 hours. I don't have that much time. Actually, blind thing. And it clearly is possible. This thought came to my mind that, you know what, just surround yourself with great people. Your senior year, surround yourself. Now, the cool thing was I'd met so many of her friends, and she was doing it. So it was like an easy, hey, these amazing people that you're surrounded with, keep doing that and pay attention to it. And then I said, okay, and I'm pulling a little bit of a fast one on you because there's something that I'm saying here that's actually a second thing. You gave me one, but pay attention to the other side.
Like 1B.
Exactly. There are not great people, and you got to figure that out. You got to kind of figure that out and spend as much time as you possibly can with just the best people. And the crazy thing is, and I remember sharing there, sometimes it's people that you wouldn't really think.
Right.
Like it's not, they don't always look like you think they're going to look, but there is something about that, just surrounding yourself with great people. And then
You are who you spend your time with, whether it's good or bad, right?
yes,
Yeah.
all of us are so influenced by the people around. All of us, full grown adults are, and we
Still.
yeah, sometimes unintentionally and sometimes very intentionally surrounded myself with just the best possible people I could find. And then exactly to your point, got better at being pretty open and vulnerable about saying, hey, listen, I've watched how you do X, Y, Z, or how do you think about this? And I'd like to learn more about how you think about that. And it's unbelievable what that does,
And the reality is most compliments are like, man, somebody's asking me to want to do great things. They're typically proud about what they've accomplished, and they actually love to tell their stories. So just simply asking for help is such an amazing, they're great people.
Mm.
So a question I have for you, so kind of skipping over, I want to go back a little bit to some of the things at Go. You left Go Engineer, you're 48 years old.
Yep.
You're the CEO, this massive, you felt like you would be able to bring value. Like, hey, my niche in consulting is going to be this. Like, this is what I think I can offer.
Yeah, it's such a great question, because that was something that even my poor wife, who when when I kind of tell her, hey, I've got this cool vision, or she's like, wait a minute, you have a pretty good voice right now. Sorry, what are you doing? You sure you serious? No, tell me what it is. You sure you want to get banger? It's not too late, Brad. Exactly. But, and really it was around kind of these two principles that are interrelated a lot. One is just the mindset. Like I realized through my own experience with my own mindset and then working around amazing people, how much mindset matters. But if you look at that same thing, you know what, I can do that. I can figure that out especially if I surround myself with the right people and resources and take the time and energy and invest in that thing, then I can probably do almost anything. That was, and I got to see us do that as an organization at Go Engineer. And we started this little company, and in the first months, you're just stressing to make payroll and pay the bills, and not only the first months, to be honest, the first few years are that. And you're like, okay, but we have this vision, we have this idea of doing something, and I was surrounded by amazing people. A gentleman named Ken Coburn, who was just like almost like fearless in his vision about how you can grow an organization, and you have to take risks, and you have to do things that some people are going, oh man, I don't know if I do that because that's a little scary. And then connected with that is the idea of leadership, because the one thing that I realized during my time at Go Engineer, we could never have enough leaders. And what I mean by that isn't like titles. I'm not talking about, VPs or presidents or managers. I'm talking about like thought leadership. You could never have enough people that would be like proactively coming in.
I have an idea, or we're doing this thing.
They like, this, and how about this? And so this idea of kind of flipping the discussion. And I remember, at Go, I'd have people come in and say, hey, you know what? I've been around here for like a few years and I'd really like a promotion. I'd like to become a manager. I'd like to do this, blah, 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 blah. My question is, okay, I get it. Like, and I'm grateful, but I'm curious, like, what's the thought leadership that you're bringing? Like, what is it about? Because if you just want to become the manager or the director or the VP, because that's a great title and maybe it comes with a raise, I'm less excited about that for you.
Yep.
Talking about how can you become a leader without, don't wait for the boss to tell you you're in charge now.
Yep.
Take charge of it. And there's a little bit of a dicey thing. Don't take charge in a negative way. Take charge in like a real positive way where you're influencing other people. You can do that. I don't care what your title is.
Well, to some extent, you're kind of the mindset of, you're kind of interviewing for that leadership role in the way that you carry yourself as it, right? And so if somebody has never done anything to contribute to the greater good of the company, never brought ideas forward, has never been kind of the more vocal voice, and then they come and tell you they want to be a leader, versus somebody that's been like, hey, I started this thing up the other day, and I've been working with so-and-so on this. We created this new program, we tested out, and I worked with so-and-so. Like, you can almost look at your just day-to-day as an interview for the next level, right?
Absolutely. Which goes back to that thing that you were talking about 20 minutes ago. The people that were just all in their current thing, both feet in, and just doing great stuff.
How did you communicate that? So new person comes in the company, like, what were some of the best practices? You can say this sometimes, but people actually have to reciprocate and respond. And then once it begins to happen, there's like this organic acceleration that can already occur. But, you all are growing very fast. You hire a bunch of people in. Like, what did you find as the CEO and leader? Like, how did you open up that mindset for your team? Like, what really worked for you all?
Yeah. And this is great, because I've been asked the question around kind of our onboarding. And I'll tell you, for the first, let's say roughly 10 years of my 22 years, we were the worst at onboarding. I guarantee if we were for the worst company, we would have won. We did nothing. Like, it legitimately, it would be, we advertise for a job and somebody comes and they get the job, and they're lucky if they get like 5 minutes, like, there's your desk, there's your computer. I think you could get logged on. If not, you wouldn't last at Go unless you were kind of a go-getter.
Yeah.
Like, unless you kind of have this, like, okay, you know what? I'll figure it out. And so I love that part of it, because we ended up with a bunch of kind of entrepreneurial people that
are scrappy minds. That's like, I got to take full about the errands.
Yeah. It doesn't matter if they applied for the accounts receivable position, the tech support, the sales rep. All of them only made it if they were like, okay, I guess I'll figure out how I get stuff done around here, because they're not making it easy, Frank. Now, I'm not saying that's the best way to do it. In fact, we started getting better through some thought leaders that came to us as a leadership team and said, hey, I think we could do better at onboarding. And I think the benefit is now some of these amazing people that are doing great things could have been doing great things, 2 months earlier, because we just had to have
exactly figure out the name of that.
Yeah. And so they, they're a gentleman thing, Tyler Hagan and Brian McCracken, they took on this kind of little project about, hey, are you okay if we do this little pilot program where we're not going to do it for still try to attract that same, so one of my little spiels that I would speak to those, new employees was, look, I'm going to tell you the story of how terrible we used to be at onboarding, but I'm also going to say I loved it because really it forced you to like take ownership of an initiative and say, look, if there's something here that I need to figure out, then I need to figure it out. And I can't really say, well, nobody ever told me, my manager can blah, blah, blah. It's like, and I really like being surrounded people who are not looking for excuses. They're just looking for like opportunity to like, get better, improve, and get stuff done. I love being, surrounded by it.
So like how many employees did you have at the end when you?
Well, about 200. I'll say.
Yeah, so like at that scale, you and I talked about this last night over dinner. If like you still, we're half that size. But what did you find as a CEO to be one of the best ways to communicate your vision or your expectations or updates with the team? Like, was it town hall meetings? Would you send videos out? Was it just being present? Like, you did such a great job connecting with all of the staff, and obviously you don't know everybody's name because you just lived in Rush.
This is another topic where reflecting on it, I give myself like a C plus in that, because in some ways I think, oh man, I could have done, so much more. And part of it is even like the technology that exists today to do that is just so much easier. Right. Putting together a little thing 10 years ago, that was an effort. You gotta have some like, now AI will say,
yeah, it's got an ace and it's done it in there, published in.
Yeah. Knowing that I do love, like I love being around people. I love understanding, why are you excited to be here? What are you worried about? Like that to me, I love.
The people that really work well here, they know we don't have everything figured out. They roll their sleeves up and they're willing to make it better. We talk a lot about like owning your role and just like, and all these things. But I also think the thing that surprises me is the perception of how disconnected CEOs oftentimes can be from the team. You're asking me for my feedback, like you're talking to me, like you're asking, like you're engaging with me, like that's not normal. And it's just surprising to me how the perception of CEOs oftentimes are, and it's a hard job. I mean, it's a super, super hard job, but how it was literally they're just a human that has a job description. Like it's not, it's not like superpower or any letter or anything. It's that you just have a different job description.
Yeah.
But when they can actually connect like that and know that you're willing to listen and willing to share and communicate openly, like I just feel like that accelerates the culture and the vision and where you're going. And when like they hear it from the horse's mouth, like they're like, okay, like this is real. Like this is what Brad wants. Like I told him about this issue that popped up, and guess what? Brad went back and solved it. Like holy cow! Like this is the culture. But I'm just some
that it doesn't happen, more often. And again, the why it doesn't happen, I still haven't landed on like the one reason. There's probably multiple reasons why it doesn't happen more. It should happen more because it's the best thing ever. And you bring up a great point that imagine if you try to do that well as a CEO, it also sets the example for everybody. Like this is how we behave. So if the CEO is like open to feedback and is like, hey, and even as you and I talked about this, it's interesting because there's another level of complexity in this that almost any organization you go to would be like, we subscribe to exactly what you guys were taught. Yeah, we do that. But you go and you ask like, and they don't even know me, right? And listen, I'm sure there was a level of that even within Go Engineer where what I was talking about is the ideal. We didn't always meet it. I love what I do. And you're gonna, of course, you're the CEO, of course you do. But don't, like for 22 years, I've worked at this organization, even when I wasn't the CEO. I got up every day. And now, are there days that were hard days? Absolutely. Are there days where like, oh my gosh, I need a break? And yes, for sure. So I'm not sugarcoating it. But overall, and the reason I love my job is because I was surrounded by great people who were also loving their job, and we had this common goal, and we believed in each other. And it was amazing. And I said that my job as a CEO is to make sure you get that same experience. And so, and I told them, look, I'm telling you this, I'm going to be kind of candid. I'm telling you for two reasons. One, because as we're growing as a company, I get it's not always like that. I get it. I get that there are days where, and if it's just a little blip and you kind of get it fixed, that's normal. And that's a part of life. If it becomes more than that, then we need to let's have a discussion about it. I'm telling you that occasionally we're going to make a misstep. And as long as we're accountable with each other, I'm also telling you that because some of you have worked at other organizations where the idea of like, wink, wink, nod, no, okay, I get what we're saying, but then I go back and I and I undermine and I politicize and I make a plot,
Yeah.
then we're going to be fantastic. But anything else is not going to be, like if you don't find that we're living up to that, please let whoever know. And if you're not living up to that, please know everybody else has been told. To kind of like rack you out in the sense of like, we owe it to each other to just provide an environment where I think it's totally fair to say, no, you should be able to work in a place where it's like, I really like working here.
Yeah.
And the good news is there are plenty of those places. There's not enough of them. There needs to be more. And you read the surveys of how many people hate their jobs and hate their bosses, and it crushes my soul. It's like, it shouldn't be like that.
And honestly, it's as hard as it is, it's also relatively simple.
Yes.
Like if you just talk to your people and communicate and listen and be open and gracious and agree they're all going to make mistakes, like,
And that's it, right?
that's not that hard.
And I love that last part, because the part of it is, and this is the problem with CEOs, I think it's the perception of CEOs. I think it's the CEOs buy into the perception, and that is, well, you're the CEO. That means that you either never make mistakes or you can't admit that you make. One of those two things becomes that lodged in, and it's ridiculous.
Right.
There's no CEOs make the exact same stupid mistakes as everybody else does. And to the degree the CEO can kind of be open and say, hey guys, here's something I messed up on. And it was great. You were sharing in our little advisory board meeting yesterday, something that had happened, you lost a customer. And I loved how you're like, it was on me. I realized as I thought about, man, that shouldn't have happened. And really it was on me. I could have done X, Y, Z and it would have been so easy for you to say, oh my gosh, our sales guy or the tech guys or whatever.
Yeah.
You could have, and this beauty of just saying, no, that like there's an opportunity for me to get better and improve here. I didn't know that this thing was wrong or whatever, because people were hiding it because,
in hindsight, you probably shouldn't have, you know what I mean? And it's
yes.
There was a book called Extreme Ownership that I love. And, a couple of Navy SEALs, Jocko and Leigh Babin wrote this. And that's probably one of my favorite leadership books. There's some blame I could easily put on the customer. We're friends. Y'all should have called me. There's blame that you can go to the sales team and say, man, why aren't we telling them, communicating with them? The technical staff could have done, but ultimately it's on me, man. I didn't enable the organization to touch that customer in the way that they needed to. And also, for whatever reason, that customer didn't feel as comfortable as I thought picking up the phone and expressing a concern. And that's on me, you know what I mean? And it ultimately is, and I think that's a concept that we've talked about internally is, if a salesperson's not hitting quota, or if a support person makes a mistake with a customer, or if a finance person makes a mistake, like, yes, there's individual accountability for them to kind of own their role and do the right things and not make mistakes. But it's also our job as a leader to make sure that they have the tools they need and the training and the communication and the grace to make mistakes. And so we talk about that a lot, of just extreme ownership. And anything that happens in this company is likely ultimately my responsibility. And just because a customer doesn't call us, it's not their fault. It's my fault for not building an organization that they felt comfortable to call. And so, I think those like humility moments, and I agree with you. I think that when leaders can be vulnerable and share the challenges that they have, I love the connection point. So kind of thinking ahead, I mean, just pivoting just a bit. I mean, you've got this, you've been in this consulting world, you got these amazing stories to share. And like, what's the next 5 to 10 years hold for you, man? Like I know you're super big on family, and we talked last night, you mentioned, everyone's like, oh my God, he's got 5 girls. I bet it's crazy and tough. But actually you were like, it was amazing. And like, have this great vision of you and your family. But also like, you have an amazing story to tell and an impact to make. Like, what are you excited about the next 5 years?
It's such a great question, because that was one of my favorite questions to ask. And because again, I got that example from Phil Meidlack, who I remember asking me, years ago. And it's something that's, I think, healthy and actually kind of fun for all of us to be like, all right. And it isn't so much that you have to have it planned out perfectly. But the answer to your question is, I've been doing this now I'll be just wrapping up my 8th year here this next July of doing this. I'm loving it. I would love to continue to do this for 8 more years. If God willing, I'm in. I would love to do it. I'm surrounded by great people. It's really fun to see the impact. it's what's interesting is I get as impacted as much, maybe more, but by my interactions as, I want to bring so much value to whoever I'm working with, but I will leave these, meetings. I think about the meeting we had yesterday and it's like, oh my gosh, like I learned so much in that, 4.5 hours, just, hearing other people's point of view and it's like, and that, like I thrive on that. I love that. I can't see that ever becoming like, oh, I don't really want to learn anymore and I don't want to.
Oh, you're around great people.
Yeah, exactly.
Like learn new things.
Yes.
God.
And I, was fortunate enough to say, like, for a season I did that and I loved it. And now I can spend a lot of time. So definitely just more time with my wife. And we just celebrated our 32nd anniversary some weeks ago, and 5 daughters that are amazing. I've got 3 grandkids and I'm sure more, on the way. And so that's how I look at the next 5 years and couldn't be more kind of excited about what that future holds.
That's awesome. That the Hansen Christmas party in like 5 or 10 years, it's going to be lights out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I know y'all alternate with the kids of, probably
Yes, yes.
right. Yeah. Stuff. So the Fays need to get an invite to the big Hansen Christmas party or holiday party 1 year. Okay. That's on our list.
It's on. Absolutely. We'll make that happen.
That's awesome. Well, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you joining today. And like, I feel like we could sit here and probably talk for hours about these topics, but just thanks for coming on and spending some time talking about these leadership lessons. And we'll definitely have you back on the show to continue to tell the story.
Anytime. I'd love to do it. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for joining me on Built with Purpose. If you have enjoyed today's episode, subscribe, share, and leave us a review. It helps more bold leaders find the show. For resources and show notes, visit our website and connect with me, Chris Fay, on LinkedIn. Until next time, keep building great companies, cultures, and legacies with purpose.